My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to, well, first of all, welcome to Pride Season, and welcome to another episode of 40-plus Gay Men Gay Talk. Y'all know who the hell I am, so I'm not going to say my name. Well, you know, I'm Rick. But we are kicking off Pride Season for 2025. What an interesting Pride Season this could be. Not going to put out any projections, but I wanted to have a full lineup for all of you guys in the 40-plus gay men's world. And I felt like starting with something that's like, well, how the heck did you get there being who you are? And how do you continue to thrive and be successful and be that person in our world? I couldn't think of a better way to kick it off than with someone who has built something called Revry. If you've heard of it, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to let them talk about this in depth, but they are, well, what I would call one of Hollywood's only non-binary CEO. And with that, I'm going to just say, this is why I wanted to kick off with this. So we're not going to go too in deep because I want Damian Pelliccione to tell their story and how they have done all of the things that they have done in this interesting world of media, Hollywood, all that sort of stuff. So Damian, welcome to the podcast.
Rick, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your podcast and talking about all things gay
Pride
and non-binary and pride, like over 40. I'm 44. I actually just turned 44 in March.
Right on.
I am
happy belated birthday. I mean, there you go.
I'm well into my mid 40s.
I loved my 40s, man. They were one of my favorite decades, to be honest. But I love that you're here, and I'm going to just share a little inside scoop. So both Damian and I are kind of under the weather, but we're pushing through just for you guys. We are pushing through getting this done here today. But let's talk about, before the whole Reverie thing, like you've been being a force in the world of streaming and Hollywood and all this stuff all the while. I'm going to assume the while.
A long time.
Like being kind of this in the middle sort of human. Where they like, really? Okay, I don't know how to do the pronoun thing and all that. When did this really become what you would say your way of being on the planet?
Yeah, it was during the pandemic that I think, discovered my gender identity. And I had always played with fashion. Fashion to me has been my protest, and makeup and hair and just, everything, going into places that are typically very heteronormative and disrupting them as not just the only queer or gay or, person, or in this case, non-binary person, but really trying to normalize what, the existence of our community can look like in spaces, specifically in business, in business conferences or in the entertainment business world, that you wouldn't see folks like me, not only just leading businesses and startups like Revry, but also just existing in those types of spaces, unless you were kind of a lower level employee who was, leading an employee resource group at one of these bigger studios and networks. And I think, one of the biggest things is it's not even just about the protest of kind of my gender, but I think for me, it allowed me to really lean in and have a lot more confidence in myself. When, I don't know, there's something about putting on a pair of heels or, a really good Louis Vuitton boot and strutting your way on stage when you're about to do a panel talking about your business that really gives you this sense of power. That was mixed with a good suit or a really cute frock, and some, full head of makeup, or maybe even just a little sparkle or dab of makeup. It empowers me to really stand out.
I love that. It's interesting. The guys who listen to this know this. You probably, I don't know why you would know this because we've just kind of got to know each other a little bit here. But I actually coach professional speakers. That's another piece of my world.
Yes.
And I actually have a former RuPaul Drag Race winner from Thailand by the name of Jeannie Germani. And she is very much in the same space. They have been he actually goes by he, but as a drag persona, he is taking his drag into the professional world of speaking. And it's been
Yeah.
amazing to see the impact that he has had. Now he doesn't always do the drag, okay? Kind of depends on like what he does, but I'm not gonna give away who he's worked for. Let's just
Yeah.
say it's a very much a bigger sports space that he has gotten hired to speak in a very macho sports space. So y'all start
Right.
playing with it. Like, is it basketball? Is it hockey? Is it this? Is it that? But
Football. Yeah.
there's a lot of options there. And I'm like, well, lucky him. He gets to march in and see a lot of good looking men, probably. Um,
Hello.
but to see him take that into that space and they embraced it. When he told me the gig he got, I literally like fell out of my chair. I'm like, really? You're pulling my
Like
chain,
the
man.
last, probably like the last possible place you'd guess.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially when it's brutish kind of men doing things in a sport, you're just like, really, wow. And I'm so proud of him because I think this is like, ooh, the breakthroughs are starting to happen. And to hear you say, when I get to put on that little bit of heels or a little bit of sparkle and just go be me on stage, I can see the enthusiasm. I heard it in your voice, number one, but I can envision the enthusiasm, the aliveness you come on the stage with. And I imagine, Damian, it helps you even have more impact in so many
Oh,
ways.
it's huge. I mean, I think one of the things is one, we find our queer allies in the room
Mm-hmm.
because I can't be more obvious when
Yeah.
I'm in these spaces. And actually, it was funny. Like just last week, we were doing our big TV upfront presentation to all the advertisers at New Friends, and we had such an impact the last 2 years that they applauded me when I came on stage. I was like surprised. Oh my gosh, they knew who I am. They were expecting to see me speak. And I was cracking jokes about, being straight or not, or, my whether or not we're going to do a musical this year. Because in the past years, we'd always do like a musical presentation with our upfront, and we didn't this year. And that was kind of the whole butt of the whole presentation, the not musical. But it was really interesting to see the reaction from the crowd. And then just the response that I got afterwards from folks who were coming up to me to say, how much they enjoy listening to us speak and learning more about our company, because we're fearless in what we put out there,
Mm-hmm.
and we're very authentic in who we are. The mission at Revry is all about queer joy. It's literally queer joy is written
Mm-hmm.
into our mission statement. If you go to Revry.tv and
Yeah.
click on the mission statement. So everything that we do, whether it's an advertiser or vendor or podcast that we're on, we want to come from the place that we are talking about, or that hopefully we are reflecting as a media company, queer joy in everything that we do.
So, what does that mean to you, queer joy? I'm
Yeah.
really curious.
Yeah. I mean, queer joy is, I think, showing kind of the opposite of what we're seeing in the news right now, right? What are the
Mm,
positive depictions of our culture look like,
yeah.
because we are a culture. And I think that's where there's still a lot of education that needs to happen in that heteronormative, kind of non-LGBTQ spaces where they just see us as gender or sexuality, when really what we are is a culture, and we're kind of a new
Mm,
wave culture. It's not even a new wave culture. We've been around for a long time, but new wave in the sense of other cultures, right? And I
right.
think once we kind of break that mold and that barrier where people start seeing us as a cultural zeitgeist, that is where we really will start to, I think, normalize the experience. And we won't be fighting so hard for our rights because we'll just be seen as everybody else. And really great, I love data and stats, so I always use data and stats and everything that I'm doing. But like when you look at, and it's funny because this is really about men over 50 or 40, sorry, 40. I 40 and slip. I'm like, oh my God, I'm already thinking about turning 50. But not
Wait
that
till
that's
you
a
turn
bad thing.
60, honey. Just wait
No,
till you
no,
turn
no.
60.
Look, I'm excited. I'm really happy where I am in life. But, in the case of like, I'm 44 years old. I was born in 1981. I am the oldest millennial on the planet possible. I'm on the cusp of millennial and Gen X. And when you look at like millennials, Gen Z, and now Alpha, the population is three times itself, kind of generation over generation as we get younger, just because more people are having more babies. But what's also really interesting is that like the size of our culture keeps tripling, right? So,
Mhm.
millennials are twice, three times as big as Gen X in terms of the LGBTQ population. Gen
Right.
Z is, 30%, one in three are LGBTQ,
Yeah.
that's a big number. And so And what also is very interesting, just to talk to the business side of things, which we always are trying to evangelize.
Yep.
We spend 1.7 trillion in the United States alone. We're the third largest consumer group. LGBTQ is the third largest consumer group, right after white and Hispanic, right? So we are a very affluent group that, like, it doesn't matter who you are in marketing or advertising, which is the world I work in.
Mhm.
You definitely want to be hitting this target demographic. It's something that is really important for the existence of your brand and your business, especially as time goes on. And, millennials now are taking over, of course, C-suite positions and leadership
Yeah.
roles. And very soon it's going to be Gen Z who are next, right? And it's going to be it's very normalized for who
Mhm.
they are in their experience, that queer people exist just like every other culture and race, and that this should not be such a protest or such an issue, to be able to navigate the world like we're experiencing until today's American political climate.
I love that you're sharing all these stats because I feel it's very important. So I'm a boomer. I'm kind of like you. I'm right on the cusp. I'm like, it depends on which one you look at. Like, okay, is he really a boomer? I was 63 was when I was born. It's funny. You said 1981. I'm like, bitch, I was graduating from high school when you were born. So, um, but I find the stats valuable to anybody, but especially to the 40 plus crowd, because here's the reason,
Right.
guys. We're always like going, well, how can I talk about who we are and why we are and anything. The one stat that Damian just dropped, the third largest consumer group, that could be a point of conversation. Like, so you really want to get rid of us on the planet? Why would you get rid of one of the third largest
Yeah.
consumer groups on the planet?
Yeah. Let's just talk dollars and cents. Let's just
Yeah,
talk
let's
about
just
like
talk.
the
We can
value
see
of the
what's happened with
market.
the whole
Yeah.
Target thing and other
Yeah.
things on the planet because of this. It's
Yeah.
such an interesting thing. It's like, why are these people just, other than power, let's just go there, other than power,
Right.
so
Right.
convinced that they got to eliminate us? And then, like, well, who the fuck are you going to replace us with? Come on, let's
Correct.
get real
Yeah.
here,
Yeah. I mean, it's like
and
we have real serious economic value. And again, I only speak to the US because that's our main market, but even
sure.
internationally, and not every country has data like we have here on that value and the size and the expendable income of our market. But it's like it's just good business sense now. So,
Mm-hmm.
and these big brands know that. Right?
Yep.
I don't think that they're going to regress forever. And I don't think that all of them are necessarily doing it in an egregious way. They're doing it in a strategic way, so they minimize their exposure from what the Trump administration can impose on them with, any DEI or ERG, employee
Mm-hmm.
resource group type policies. But I will argue, and McDonald's is a great example. We love McDonald's. I am a big advocate of McDonald's. I am not protesting them. I'm supporting them. They're one of our biggest advertisers. And even though, like, publicly, they may have regressed from their public policies in fear of what the Trump administration may do to cause harm towards their business, they're the platinum sponsor of World Pride. They're
Mm-hmm.
still sponsoring Reverie. They're still buying into our community. They know what the value is. So they're
Right.
not regressing from us. They may be regressing from a public policy standpoint, but that's because they're fearful of who is in power right now, who's leading this country. But that's not going to last. That's only going to be for the next 3.5 years until, the orange asshole's out of the White House.
Right. But this is the important part of the conversation to have is
Right.
like go beyond what you think you know. So a good
Exactly.
example of this is locally here in my community, there was a town hall meeting in Morro Bay. So I know this is public knowledge. So I'm going to just put it out there. And they
Uh-huh.
voted on whether a pride flag can be flown. And it's kind of a interesting, there's a whole thing behind this because they voted on it so that it won't actually go in effect until 2026. Well, of course, come around, they think, oh, well, we'll say no, it can't be flown. And everybody will have forgotten about this by Pride next year. I'm like, bitches, we don't forget. Trust us. The LGBTQ community does not
Yeah,
forget things. We still
we did
talk about
not.
Stonewall, bitches. So come on, get a
Yeah.
grip on this. But the interesting piece of this whole thing, and this is happening in a lot of places, is okay, they voted to not have any kind of flags other than the city flag, the California flag, the United States flag. They are opposing any other things. Okay. Now, granted, we can go, okay, but it's about pride. I get it. But if you roll back and peel back, and yes, they used it for the pride, but then now guess what? We can hold them accountable if any other flag goes up on the city building, because they said it's only going to be those three: city, state, and country.
Yeah.
What they don't realize they just did is they've actually set themselves up to get called out in a big way if they fly any other kind of flag. So I think sometimes this is where we as a community have to like, okay, yes, it sucks, but let's hold them accountable for what they just did too. Let's make sure, and sometimes we do have to peel the layer of the onion back, or the, nonsense, to really see it. And I think what you just shared is really valuable, because as a business owner, to go, wait, let's look at it through another lens here, folks. Here's the thing. It's so interesting for me, Damian, because right after the whole Target thing started to unfold, I was in Target for something. I'm not going to be a complete walk away, because there's only two things I buy. Well, actually, really at this stage, one thing I buy at Target. Khalifa almond milk, it can be the cheapest at Target. So I'm like, if I spend, $20 at Target once every month on something, they ain't making much off of me right now.
No.
But what was interesting was the day this was all starting to unfold, I was in there buying cards, and I was like, well, this is interesting.
Like greeting cards.
Yeah, like greeting cards. And I was like, well, this is interesting. For all the hubbub that they're saying, I saw more for my husband, from a husband, from my wife. I'm like,
because Hallmark knows. Hallmark knows the value,
because all the rest of those companies know, and Target isn't stupid. They're not going to get rid of those cards, because they need to make money on those cards.
Of course.
So again, there's lots of stuff you and I could probably go into this forever, but I love the wealth of information you're providing here. But one of the things that I also loved when I was on the Revry site, other than I did read your mission, and of course I got a big smile on my face, because you said, when we believe in living unapologetically. Well, my brand is no fears, no excuses, no apologies. So I'm like, okay, girlfriend and I are going to have a good conversation when this comes down, because we're on the unapologetic way. But it does beg the question.
It's tattooed on my arm. Unapologetically queer in Keith Haring's handwriting is tattooed on my forearm, my right forearm.
I love that. I never thought about that. Well, see, I've always wanted to do something like the no fears, no excuses, no apologies.
I love that.
And I need to make some t-shirts, because I think people would buy them. Like they're just
for sure. I'll buy one.
So, but what I love about,
I didn't mean to cut you off. You're gonna
no. I love this, because it's going where we're headed. I think just the brand of Revry, and this is me just kind of putting my own spin on it, really does showcase that radical inclusivity and that unapologetic, because you have pushed the envelope of, we're going to go streaming, we're going to bring all this programming this way. And guess what? We're breaking the mold unapologetically.
And it's free. It's all free.
Mm-hmm.
No barrier to entry.
Think about that. That's even more.
We are an ad-supported platform, free queer TV. That is who we are.
Did you guys hear that? Free queer TV. Now, I know some of you go, I'm not queer. Get over it. You're under the umbrella. Okay, guys?
Just free TV.
I love you all. I realize for some of my guys that are 60 plus queer, yes, that was not a really good phrase for us. But let's start embracing it a little bit more and going, okay, we can do this. So what are you you've got all these things going on for you, top 100 most intriguing entrepreneurs, all that sort of stuff. What's the thing you're most proud of by being who you are and how you show up in the world with yourself and this brand? Are you a gay guy over 40 and feeling like your confidence is ghosting you? Well, you're not alone. Because whether you're stressing over work, dating, your relationship, or you're afraid you're not rocking your body the way you used to at a pool party, I've got you covered. I'm ready to do some good work with you. I'm Rick Clemons. I'm the Gay Man's Life Coach. And here's how I'm going to help you kick ass in your life. Number one, we're going to start working on you ditching that inner critic so that you can own your awesomeness. Number two, we're going to help you stop worrying about what others are thinking. Seriously, it's time to let that go. Finally, we're going to help you show up in every part of your life feeling strong and unstoppable as the awesome gay man that you are. Here's the deal. Confidence is just waiting for you, and you just need to hook up with the right guy to help you along. And I hope I'm that guy for you. I'm going to make this a really sweet deal. You can simply schedule a complimentary Your Next Move coaching session with me today. And we're going to get you moving towards building that confidence or resurrecting that confidence you used to have. All you got to do is go to yournextmovesession.com today to start activating the confidence within. Again, all you got to do is go to yournextmovesession.com and get started with a complimentary coaching session to kick confidence in the booty and get you back on track.
I mean, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is being in, again, kind of like I was just mentioning earlier, being in these business spaces, whether it be finance and startup and venture capital, because we are, a venture-led business. We raise money just like any other tech startup did. That was our model. And then also being in kind of the entertainment world, but like showing up unapologetically, showing up in my true authentic self, and then people just naturally kind of latching on and reacting to you or wanting to get to know you. I think that's really exciting to me, but I think really what excites me is when I see someone else like me show up that way. Because then what I am starting to see is the fruits of the labor that we've been doing, which is to evangelize ourselves in these spaces and allow others, give permission to others just by us, living authentically, to also lead authentically or show up authentically in these spaces. I can't tell you how many queer kids or queer families will come up to me after these events and say, "Oh my God, my kid is trans, my kid is lesbian, my kid is gay. I am so excited to learn about your network, or I love the show that you guys are doing, King of Drag or Drag Latina or the International Vogue
Right.
League." Like they really are excited to learn about, our space and the fact that we are a truly free network that is accessible to all on a global scale. Right now we're at 5 million monthly active viewers across the world, with about 80% of that coming from the United States. But it's, I think the fruits of my labor, and, we're celebrating 10 years since we
Wow.
launched Revry 10 years ago, right? So that's even just like, I'm like, where did a decade go? That's crazy. I was in my like early 30s when I started this company. Now I'm in my early to mid 40s, right? And again, no regrets. I'm really happy with everything that we built to date. I think now it's, we're a mid-level company and things are getting bigger, but it still amazes me when someone's heard about us. Because I still always am shocked. I'm like, oh my God, you know what we do, or you know who we are, or
Mhm.
you know who I am. And that's just me kind of staying humble, but also realizing, like, I think what we have built in 10 years now is greater than what we probably anticipated to be. And I think any entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what sector of work, whether you're in entertainment or fintech or clean tech or whatever technology that is that you do, that's the most exciting thing. We all, as CEOs and founders, want to build something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. I remember the first time, and it was actually in LA. I don't know, I walked into Buffalo Exchange I don't remember, I don't know the streets in LA so well, but I walked into like trade a few clothes in, and of course you can't walk in there and then not get sucked into like, well, let's trade them in. Oh, let's buy this. So let's buy this. Yeah.
They
And
get
I'm
you every time.
standing there and I was talking to the person at the cash register, and he kind of looked at me and he goes, "Your voice sounds really familiar." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, I said, I'm not an actor. So that ain't, I mean, look at this body. I'm not."
No.
And he goes, "Do you do a podcast?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Oh, I know your podcast." It was so interesting to see that. And that was, and not because I felt like, oh, I'm a celebrity,
No, just
but the
exciting that
next
someone
words that came
recognized
out of
it.
his
Yeah.
mouth was, "I started listening to your podcast when I was 19 years old and I was trying to figure everything out. And you were telling the stories of lots of different people coming out, and it helped me so much." That was one of those moments, Damian, that
Huge.
you
Huge.
can't, it's so huge. Even
Yeah.
now I'm getting some chills talking about that. Didn't hurt that he was really cute too. I'm like, oh, you want a daddy,
But
don't you?
it's the idea of getting through to one person, no matter who they are, or
Yes.
where they are in life.
Yes.
And we do, and it's funny you say this because like we've had experiences. I was in India in 2018 speaking at Kashish, the LGBTQ film festival in Mumbai, and they had just decriminalized being LGBTQ the year before, and we had licensed this like lesbian Hindi drama series called
Mm,
The Other Love Story. And I remember I wanted to experience India because I'd never been to Mumbai. And I went for the whole week, and it was the opening night. And of course, like they had all the guest speakers come up during the opening night ceremony to be like, hey, come see me speak at Friday, whatever, 2 o'clock.
right.
And I had all this lineup of lesbian filmmakers that wanted to talk to me. And it was all because of that one series that we didn't even make. We just distributed and
Mm,
branded as an original. And it wasn't until the fourth woman where she was like, I don't think you realize why all these women want to talk to you. I'm like, I have no clue. I can't figure it out. But I'm really excited. I'm happy to meet I'm here to meet as many people as possible, right? That's why I came.
Right.
And she turns on her Tinder and she starts swiping, profiles. And, because of fear of discretion and the fact they only just decriminalized like a year before being LGBTQ in India, women were using images, like queer women, lesbians were using images from the other love story to identify themselves as lesbian on Tinder. And
Wow.
I started crying. I was like, this is crazy. Like, here is a
Mhm.
part of our community. There's no way I would have met had I not taken this opportunity, had I not traveled 26 hours on a flight to like, be
Right.
here and then identify myself. Like, there's so many factors as to why that would not have happened in the way that it did. Sure, you probably feel the same way, even being at like, if I hadn't walked into Buffalo Exchange and decided to like, trade some stuff in.
Right.
And it's those moments that remind us that like, oh, what we are doing are making an impact as small or as big as you think that it is. And those are greater gifts than any award that we can receive.
Absolutely. Well, and just being able to do what we're doing right now, this podcast, and go,
Absolutely.
who knows who it's going to reach, who it's going to touch. I mean, I discovered, and I'm not going to give you a specific date that I remember because I don't. My 61-year-old brain goes, I can't even remember. Did I take my pills this morning? But hey, that's life. But I do remember the first time. I mean, kind of remember it was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, that I remember Reverie. I'm like, oh, this is
Oh
something to
wow.
kind of like pay attention to. And when I was reaching out to certain PR people, I'm like, "Do any of you know anybody about this Reverie thing?" And some of them were like, "I don't know." And then we got really busy with a lot of shows, and then things were pouring in, and I'm like, "Okay." And then when this came in, I'm like, "This is the one I was like, a few years ago was like, I would love to
Trying to
see where I
figure
could
out.
create a connection around, right?"
That's awesome.
And the reason it was so compelling to me to have you to help kick off Pride season is everything we've just been talking about, but also this ability to stand out, to not be afraid to be that unapologetic difference, to like say, here's who we are. For me, this is what Pride season's always been about. And especially in a year like this, if we don't embrace our radical inclusivity
Yeah,
to its hilt,
absolutely.
we're actually doing ourselves a disservice right now. Now, does
Yeah.
that mean you have to go out and protest? Does that mean for some of you guys listening, that doesn't even mean you necessarily have to go to a pride, but embrace our radicalness. And that may mean from, your comfy little couch, you give more money to, human rights campaign or ACLU, whatever it is to make sure that we're all included. You may tell somebody about Reverie so that they can continue to get viewers and get ad sponsors. Whatever it is that says we are here, I'm going to say it, and we're queer and we're not going away.
Yeah.
This is to me what can bring more queer joy into the planet than anything else is
Yeah.
embracing that radicalness.
And I think, look, just to your point, rather than give money to not-for-profits that are LGBTQ based, use the power of your dollar to buy LGBTQ owned and operated services
Yep.
and businesses,
Yep. Yep.
right? And there is a sea of LGBTQ small businesses that would love you to buy their
Mm-hmm.
t-shirts, to buy their hats, to buy their flags, to buy their apparel, to buy their, cookies from them. And it's super
Exactly.
easy. You go to the National Chamber, Gay and Lesbian, the LGBTQ National Chamber of Commerce,
Yep.
NGLCC, National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. Let me get that right. Go to their
Yep.
website and you can find every type of small LGBTQ owned and operated business in the United States that's registered with them. So they're certified just like we are. That has more power than you giving a dollar to a
Mm-hmm.
not for profit. Because
Yep.
what you are doing is you're keeping our $1.7 trillion spend, the power of that pink dollar within our own community. And
Mm-hmm.
and my biggest thing is I don't want to be a charity to somebody. I want to be a
Right.
thriving for-profit entity, which now we are after 10 years. It only took 10 years to get here. But a thriving for-profit, and even where we put our dollars when we're looking at like printing merch or we're thinking about who we're buying from or services that we're working with or agencies to create our next social campaign, we look for LGBTQ owned and operated first and foremost because
Yep.
we want to keep the money within our own community and we want to help others like us build businesses because I remember what that struggle looked like when I was
Mm-hmm.
starting out as an entrepreneur in a
Mm-hmm.
small business.
Yep. I always look. I always look around. If we're
Yeah.
traveling, I'm like, okay, where might I find? I mean, okay, sure, it can be easy. Go to the gay bar. Okay, that's almost like a given. I mean, come on.
Totally.
But I also look for like what might be some gay owned restaurants, what might be some gay
Yes.
shops, we were both just recently in New York. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. I'm like, okay, where can I find it? Granted, you just go to Chelsea or Ninth Avenue or whatever it is, and you can pretty much find it. But I want to try to figure that out. Now, some people have heard me say, yeah, I don't go to the gay bars. Well, that doesn't mean I'm not like gay. It's just, I'd rather than go to a gay bar, show me a good gay wine bar where I can sit back, some kind of quiet music. Again, guys, I'm 61. I'm not old. I'm not dead, but I'll drink all the wine in the world in one of those places. And I would
But
love to support that.
yeah,
And
and
I
there
think
and there sorry, not to cut you off, but I mean there are great things like there are wine tours that are gay owned and operated up
exactly,
in wine country. And
absolutely.
even so much so is like a lot of the apparel that I wear, a lot of the clothing I wear comes from LGBTQ owned and operated. Sharp
Mm-hmm.
Suiting, Nick Casey, Wild Fang, Willie Chavarria, LGBTQ designers. That's where I buy my clothes. I or design my clothes or try the most of my apparel comes from when you see me on red carpets are coming from these gender neutral or at least like, LGBTQ owned and operated designers. And there's a whole swath from like, inexpensive to like high end and I think supporting those apparel companies and really evangelizing and talking about it, that's a protest. I'm protesting with
Mm-hmm.
my dollar, right? I'm
Right.
not just going to go to Gap. I'm not just going to go to like any other mainstream outlet and buy. I want to buy from, or at least brands that are supporting our community.
Right. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I guess a lot of people hear about who my husband and I travel with.
Yeah.
And it's been, okay, so let's start down the list. Atlantis, Vakaya. Now we're trying outbound. I mean, this isn't because I don't trust anybody else to travel with, but hey, I kind of want to be with my own people, number one.
Totally. I've always wanted to
And
do one of those. Oh my God, I'm going to come to you to get your thoughts on all of them next time.
well, I have lots of opinions, but I won't say them on the air because I don't want to
No, no,
hurt
no,
some
no.
people's
We'll talk
feelings. But
privately.
but I do love that first you get an instant community. Okay, so let's go there.
Exactly.
You're with your own. Number two, I know my dollars are going somewhere that I'd like to see them be supported. Right now,
Yeah.
is there a gay airline? I wish there was. That probably would be a freaking hoot because God knows, Pan Am and all them would probably be the flight attendants. But anyway, I feel like there's these spaces, and yes, there's going to be sometimes I'm like, okay, there really isn't anybody here. But if you don't ask, I mean, you're in LA, I'm in Central Coast, California. I have discovered a couple of really unique gay destinations that are like one guy has a whole gay, I'm going to call it a gay ranch, kind of between the two of us, kind of out
Oh,
Santa
hell
Barbara
yeah.
Hills area. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that even existed. And he and I have had several conversations. I haven't stayed there yet. I'm like, well, bitch, I only live an hour away. Why would I go spend the night? But it's like, I tell people about it all the time. I talk about it in my Instagram posts. I'm like, hey, there's a hidden little gem here that most of you don't know. I love finding those things and helping our community really do the things that helps us grow our community, support our community, put the dollars where it's like, oh, you really think you're going to take us away? What's going to happen if you try to take us away, sort of thing.
And I will say, and again, just going back to the theme of the podcast, like it's really exciting that, now as I get older, becoming more financially stable, that you can afford those things, right? Like that's to me, that's one of the most exciting things about aging is just the knowledge and of life that I have that I didn't have 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but then also the ability to be able to have more comfort.
Right. Exactly. And there's a magical thing that happens when you turn 60, Damian. When you turn 60, you don't have to pay for any of that shit because they pay for you to go on their trips. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I wish.
I
I'm
do
like,
need to
okay,
talk to you.
whoever cracks
I'm
that
gonna call
nut,
you later.
I'm all in. Like, show me how to do that one. But I do love that. So back to Reverie before
Yeah,
we get ready to wrap up here. Where do you, I mean, 10 years. So first of all, congrats.
thank you.
It's like your baby grows up, right? I remember
Totally.
it'll be a year ago this coming October that I laid my baby podcast to rest, my first one. We had done it for 10 years, 651 episodes. And I'm like, it's done its thing. We're good. And it was really difficult to do it. But man, that milestone achievement was like, wow, that's amazing. So where do you see from here you would like to see Reverie go?
I mean, that's a really great question, and it's funny, and no one's asked me this in a minute. I definitely want to see Reverie continue to grow. I want to see it continue to be kind of a player on more of a world stage than just here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, I think, we could eventually be acquired and seen as kind of a real player in kind of a bigger machine, and really
Mm-hmm.
take up space and really be loud and proud with more funding and more marketing dollars and more original content, the things that obviously every network wants to make more of. We're creators at heart, we're filmmakers at heart, and we want to continue to tell our story and amplify that. One of the really exciting things in the short term that I will say just before we wrap up is our new Drag King series, King of Drag,
Mm.
the world's first drag king series. And I know everyone knows what a drag queen is, and if you're in the
Sure.
community, you should know what a drag king is. It's obviously usually a queer woman or trans or non-binary person who is parodying masculinity. And the drag king community has been around forever, just as long as the drag queen community, and it's just so huge and untapped. And we've been working on this for a couple of years. We tapped Marie Hill as our host. We just put out a
Mm.
big. I'll send you the trailer with all of our guest judges from like Lisa Renna to Cola Scola to Paul Feig to Bridget Everett to Jeff Hiller to Landon Sider to Carmen Carrera to Sonique to Got Mick to Tenderoni, Wang Newton, like just some real Liv Houston, amazing personalities, celebrity personalities who lent themselves to the show. And just at the time that this podcast is coming out, we'll be announcing our cast, which is more exciting because it's the first 10 contestants to be on the first season, the premiere of the show, which will air first episode for free, again, for free on
Wow.
anything that Reverie streams on Sunday, June 22nd. Sunday, June 22nd, King of Drag premieres on
Awesome.
Reverie. It'll be 6 episodes. There's a prize every week. There's an elimination. But it's the Drag King community. When we first announced this back in December and we announced Marie as our host, the hashtag, and this is one of those going back to one of those moments that you're most proud of that we talked
Mm-hmm.
about before, tying this back, was that so many queer women and so many drag kings were so enthusiastic that finally this type of show was going to get made. And not to call shade, but like, one of the things that were trending within this post was hashtag finally. And they were referring to the fact that like in 17 seasons of Drag Race and 14 international seasons, they've yet to ever cast a drag king.
Wow. That kind of shows our own discrimination within our own community in a really interesting twist.
Yeah. And this is where, whether you're queer, whether you're gay, whether you're lesbian, whether you're trans, whether you're bi, whether you're pan, any aspect of however you identify on the spectrum, we still have to support everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
My closest friends are transgender, celebrities and personalities, and those are the ones that I hire first. Those are the ones that I go to. They're the ones that I'm closest with, and I make every point to make sure that I am advocating, that I am promoting, that I am talking about what is going on with the transgender community in this country right now, because it's not so much about gay men or even lesbians. It's about it's about trans folks right now. That is the conversation and the fight that we are having. I have a purse that one of my employees made for me a couple of years ago for the GLAAD Awards. One of my favorite bags. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not even designer. It was upcycled. They painted it and they put Trans Lives Matter and glitter on it. That
Mm.
bag I use almost
Yeah.
every time I go to sit on a panel in one of these like very heavily heteronormative,
Right.
entertainment business spaces. And I'll set that bag down just as a reminder to everybody else, even though the conversation's not about trans rights, it's about like business and streaming,
Mm-hmm.
just as kind of a reminder to everybody else that this is what we're fighting for.
Absolutely. It's interesting. So I was part of I volunteer at the Slow Film Festival, so everybody knows I live in San Luis Obispo. Not going to give you all the address because I don't need stalkers. But anyway,
No.
I volunteer at the Slow Film Festival, and this year was it was really special because Bob Mackey was the one who got the
Oh,
award.
icon.
And I got to introduce him at one of the screenings, and I was in the hall, out in the theater, talking to him, and I was trying not to fanboy, but I'm like, that's actually to have a conversation with him. That's a pretty big moment, right?
I would lose my shit. I would lose my shit.
And it was really cool.
His
His business associate or partner Joe is really amazing too. And so we started doling trash about, they live in the Palm Springs area. So we started talking about, where each kind of live and, all this sort of stuff. And I turned to Bob and I said, so I know I'm not interviewing you. You're going to come up, you're going to say a couple of things, because the next day was when they were going to do the interview, but I got to introduce him to the people who were in the theater that night. And I said, I have a question for you. Out of all the stuff you've done, all the celebrities, what is the thing that you're most intrigued by what you've gotten to do in fashion?
No. What did he say?
He said, I'm most intrigued not by so much who I've gotten to dress, but the kind of humans I got to put costuming and fashion on, regardless of their gender.
Wow, how cool.
And I was like, okay, damn, I wish this was on my podcast right now. So there it is, guys. That's probably as much as you're going to get. And I just was like, of all the things he possibly could have said, oh, I got to dress so-and-so. There was and he was really quiet, because I could tell he was really thinking. So I feel like I asked him one of those questions that maybe he hasn't ever really got asked in that way. And when that came out of his mouth, I was like, that's a very impactful statement.
Huge.
Because what he just said in that was, I really don't care. I don't really care.
Yeah.
The beauty of what he gets to do is put his talent, his skill, his artistry onto the human form, period.
Yep. No matter what shape, size, gender, race, age, exactly. And that's true artistry, right? And that's very, very powerful. That should be on a shirt.
And I think what you're doing is very similar. To think of the power of what you're bringing with Revry to be something that potentially has that ability to be picked up and taken into even a more larger scale brand, ecosystem, to say, once again, guys and gals, I know some gals listen to this podcast too, like, we are queer and we are still here and we're not going anywhere. And I think that's the power of what you're doing with Revry. So
thank you. Oh, I appreciate
it. I so appreciate you being here, Damian, and doing what you're doing. I mean, if I'm ever in LA, I may have to hit you up and go, okay,
absolutely,
Brad, let's go have a real cocktail and conversation. Not that this hasn't been real. I think this has been great. But,
no,
but anyway,
no,
so people want to go to see where they can do all this. There's an app.
Revry.tv. Yep. Anything you stream with, any app store, any smart TV, just type Revry into the search and we'll pop up.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Damian. Continue to do the good stuff. As things happen, if you want to come back, I'd be so open to having you back on the podcast to talk about, when you turn 50, let's just say that. You got a few years to go there, but no, I'm kidding. By the time you're 50, I'm going to be like, bitch, I'm 70 and I am just kicking back, not doing shit now. So anyway,
we'll meet in Palm Springs.
Exactly. There we go. We go. All right, my friend.
Thank you for having me,
thank you guys for listening. Go out and have a wonderful, exciting, just enjoyable, if you want to be a little bit of like radical pride person and hold our ground, let's hold our ground and let them know we're still here. Go out, be safe, be fun. And again, thanks for being listeners and enjoy your pride season. Be well, everyone.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus. Gay men, gay talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus, Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.